Hello and welcome. I'm Deanne Conrad, Community Relations Supervisor for the Sioux Falls School District. We thank you for joining us today as we are welcoming a brand new superintendent to the Sioux Falls School District. We're so happy to introduce Dr. Maher, who is joining us officially July 1 and hopefully will be here for a long time to come. So welcome to you, Dr. Maher.
Thank you, and thanks for having me here today.
You bet. We're just wanting to share a little bit about your past as your educational experience, where you've been. Tell us a little bit about who you are. So we'll start with some very basic questions. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your family, if you would, please.
Sure. This sounds just a little bit like the interview process I went through. Kind of a first question there.
Yeah, you should be good to go then. You should have it down.
Well, really about me, I'm married. My wife, Peg, who just celebrated an anniversary, and Peg and I have 3 kids, girl, boy, girl, Lindsay, Brett, and Maggie, 3 grown children, all living in the Lincoln and Omaha area of Nebraska, so not too very far from here. And we've been, I think, blessed as a husband and wife, and this is our next adventure, coming to Sioux Falls, and we'll put our roots down here.
And I happen to know you have grandchildren as well.
We do. Our two oldest children are married. Lindsay is married, lives in Lincoln. She's actually a middle school. I think she came by that naturally. Lindsay is married and has a 3-month-old son. In fact, her son, our grandson, was born in between the interview and the offer for the position. So I interviewed here on a Thursday night. Our grandson was born on Friday, and then on Saturday I received the offer from the Board of Education for this position. So that was kind of a crazy 3-day run for us.
Right, that was a whirlwind, I'm sure, and that wasn't so very long ago either.
Right.
So tell us, you alluded to it a little bit, but tell us about your educational background and a little bit about your work history. You come from, or you're producing more teachers for the future as well, but tell us about your history.
Right. Well, I kind of left that. My youngest daughter, Maggie, is also a teacher in the Omaha area in the Elkhorn Public Schools. Just finished her first semester of teaching in special education. And then our middle son, Brett, who also has a daughter, our second grandchild. Brett is in between jobs. He was a kicker and a punter in the Canadian Football League a year ago, but just had surgery on his right hip. And when you're a kicker, a professional kicker, having surgery on your right hip doesn't lend itself to that profession. So he's rehabilitating this year. But Brett also has, or will have his degree in math education. So I suspect at some point in time in his life he might veer into the educational realm as well. So sure. That's kind of sums up the kids there. From a professional perspective, I did my undergraduate work at Midland College in Midland University now in Fremont, Nebraska, about 2.5 hours straight south of here. And then I got my master's degree and my doctorate work, did both of those at the University of Nebraska at Omaha. So that was kind of the background from the paperwork standpoint.
Sure.
And then I've taught and coached. I've taught math, computer science, and physics. Coached almost everything: football, basketball, baseball, track, soccer. I have a great affinity for coaching, and those who do coach. And then from there, I've been an assistant principal. I've been an activities director. Been a principal, a high school principal, and then for the last 16 years, I've been a superintendent.
So, tell us about the moment you decided to get into education. Why did you get into the field of education, or was there someone who led you to that path?
Well, I don't know that there was ever an epiphany, but probably the course of a lot of events. My earliest memories truly of being around school-based activities was actually going and watching the high school basketball team practice before I was in school. And I had an older brother that was with the program, so I actually got to go and just watch. It was probably a 4-year-old or maybe a 5-year-old, somewhere in that realm. And I remember Coach Engelbart being somebody that I thought was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so that probably started it. And then throughout my own school years, I had a number of terrific role models, teachers, coaches, etc., and people that I thought I wouldn't mind being like them one day. Never had a desire to be an administrator when I was younger, just a teacher and a coach. I think another thing that helped galvanize that decision along the way was my dad was an elementary school custodian, so I got to spend a lot of time with Dad before school and after school. Now I look at it as a real blessing. Then I don't think I thought it was a blessing when I had to go.
Probably felt like detention.
It did. Well, I had the deal my dad struck with me was this: if I'd help him sweep floors and empty trash, I'd get so much gym time, so I'd get to go shoot baskets.
Sure.
So
Reward at the end of the work.
that was the reward for me, and for me as a youngster, that was better than money. So
Right.
that was a terrific reward. So I think all of those things really kind of led me into education, and then once I became a teacher and a coach, I think there was just a natural evolution to always desire positions of leadership. So to be a department head, to be a head coach, to be a principal, and then ultimately to be a superintendent. I never really desired any of those elements, but I think the desire to lead was always there for me.
Sure. I have to ask, math and computer science and physics, if that was your background, did those things come easy for you, or were they difficult for you?
Math was always something that came pretty easy for me. Physics I took just because some of my friends were taking it and found out I was pretty good at that along the way as well. So it was kind of just blind luck in the area of physics. I don't know that there was ever any particular desire other than I knew I was pretty good at math, and I also knew that math teachers were in demand. Even in the mid-'80s, they were in demand. So
things like that have a way of cycling through, don't they?
So it was something that I enjoyed, and then there was the practical piece of the marketability.
Right, absolutely. You've been superintendent before. You're coming to us from Kearney. Tell us a little bit about the communities where you have served.
Okay. I've been a superintendent 2 times prior to coming to Sioux Falls. One was at a district called Centennial, based in Utica, Nebraska. It's a consolidated school. When I went there, it was probably about 700 students total, so a pretty small district. And I went from there to Kearney. I was 8 years at Centennial. Went to Kearney, and in Kearney we had 5,300 students, so quite a jump. But then from Kearney to here, I'm going from 5,300 to pre-K-12, over 24,000 students in Sioux Falls. So another pretty sizable jump there. Centennial was a very agricultural-driven community, a very farm-based community, just good, hardworking people. Small town Nebraska, small town Midwest. There are probably hundreds of towns like Utica across Nebraska, Iowa, South Dakota, very, very similar towns. And then Kearney was a little bit of a hub for central Nebraska, a community of about 32,000 people. The school system was very much an integral piece of the ecosystem that
Sure.
was Kearney, and a great place to be. But what happened for me when I went from Centennial to Kearney was I saw more of the importance of the medical community to a community of that size, industry to a community of that size, manufacturing to a community of that size. So I saw those other elements of the ecosystem that were really important, and I think really in some ways kind of led me to Sioux Falls.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. What is it that attracted you here? Obviously, a scale that is larger than the 5,200 students you're coming from, but what really attracted you to the Sioux Falls area?
Well, that's a great question. The first thing that attracted me was the search firm contacted me. I was incredibly happy in Kearney. My wife was incredibly happy in Kearney. The Board of Education that I worked for there was truly a positive force in the community, and our relationship was really strong. So there was no desire to leave Kearney, and for months now I've told the people of Kearney that. There was never a desire to leave Kearney. But the search firm, the Ted Blazing from the search firm, really was insistent that I look at this before I just simply dismissed Sioux Falls as a potential destination. And so once I began to look, I began to have moments where I went, well, this is kind of neat, and that is kind of neat. I had no idea how economically vibrant Sioux Falls was. I had no idea how large Sioux Falls was. Growing up just 2.5 hours from here, you would think that I would have known a lot more about the community, at least, and I really didn't. And so the more I looked at what made Sioux Falls tick, the more I thought, and that's in concert with who I think I am. I mentioned earlier that our kids are in Lincoln and Omaha, and that's kind of the center of our universe. Kearney was a little over 2 hours from Lincoln, a little over 3 hours from Omaha. Sioux Falls is about 2.5 hours from Omaha, and just over 3 hours from Lincoln. So really, in terms of being away from that center, we're the same distance.
Sure.
And actually, Fremont, where my wife's parents reside now, we're actually a little closer to them. So from a purely geographical standpoint, we're actually a little closer to our center in Sioux Falls, even though we're in a different state than we were in Kearney. So that was another thing that the more we got to looking, the more we thought, this really makes sense. And then I think just the professional ambition of more students, more staff. I think in some ways we've had success in the stops along the way, and so part of that professional ambition is, can I do it with a bigger scope? Can I do it with greater complexity? And that's what I'm here to find out.
Very good. Well, what are some of the long and short-term goals that you have? I know it's been said you have a 100-day plan that you're wanting to roll out. Tell us a little bit about what's involved in that plan and some of the short-term goals, and then maybe work into the long-term goals you have.
Great question. Really, my short-term goal and my long-term goal are both somewhat the same in that I think everything we do will really center around the quality relationships that we build, both from the short-term standpoint of just getting into the community and getting to know what makes people tick in the community, what makes programs, what makes companies tick, those sorts of things, I think are really going to be relationship-driven from me. Over the long haul, I think the bigger impact I can have in Sioux Falls will be dictated by those quality relationships. So I think both short and long-term quality relationships are the key. Part of that 100-day plan is just to get out and meet people, find out what they think is going well in the community and in the school district, and find out what gaps they think exist. And then after 100 days, seeing what the common themes are and trying to go about addressing those gaps, which takes me into a second piece there, and that is developing a strategic plan for the future of the district in concert with our Board of Education to know that we're all headed in the right direction. And as officials elected from the community, I know our board is going to want what's best for the community as well as this new superintendent. So that's kind of a big picture look at those pieces.
More to come on strategic planning and all of those pieces as well.
Very definitely.
Well, how would you describe your leadership style, would you say? If someone were to observe you as a leader, what could they expect?
Well, I read this in a book, so this isn't something I made up. But there's an author, Thomas Sergiovanni, who does a lot of leadership work, and he coined the term years ago, situational leadership. And I would say that that describes my leadership style. I'll give you an example. If there is an immediate threat, if there is something that's going on right now, I think as a leader, you don't have time to form a committee, you don't have time to gauge the wind, you've got to be in a position to make a decision. So there are times where immediate decisions have to be made, and so you're more of a, I guess, a dictator, for lack of a better term, or a more appealing term than that. but you make decisions in a somewhat unilateral position. To the extent that I can, I like to be far more a collaborator and bring people in and figure out where we're headed, thus the strategic plan.
Sure.
And the number of people that we'll involve in helping us with that vision. One of the things that I've really noticed and admired, and the thing that appealed to me immediately about the Sioux Falls District, was how it's really a mission-driven organization. I can tell Dr. Holman really did her work with making that part of the school system. So I look forward to continuing that mission-driven role as a leader. So collaborator, unilateral leader, visionary, I think all those things, depending upon what the situation calls for.
Right, very good. Well, there are certainly lots of opportunities for for leadership in the district and leadership in the community, and I think that's another expectation that has come about. You have already been asked to serve on the Blue Ribbon Task Force for schools in South Dakota. Even prior to your beginning your job, you got that call from the governor's office and requested your participation in that. Give us a little bit of an idea about how you feel you can affect some of the change that maybe needs to happen in funding for education.
Well, first of all, I was honored to be considered, and I know that's a reflection of sitting in the superintendent seat at Sioux Falls. So I'm very mindful and respectful of that responsibility, and I'll take that very seriously. In looking at the committee, I think maybe what I bring that maybe is a little bit different than others to the committee is a fresh set of eyes. I don't have a preconceived notion of the South Dakota finance system, and I've got a lot to learn. Luckily, in Sioux Falls, we have Todd Veek, who is not just an expert locally, but an expert statewide. And Todd will go through a crash course tutorial with me to bring me up to speed. I do think one of my strengths, though, is school funding. And so while I don't know the Sioux Falls system, I do understand school funding, and I do understand that it's a complex undertaking. That's no different in Nebraska than it is in South Dakota. So those things will be very similar. I'll do my best to learn the vocabulary and the nuances that come with calling the same thing two different things just across state lines. But I think the thing that I bring again is probably that fresh perspective, and also maybe to let folks know that there isn't a silver bullet, or at least if there is, it didn't exist in Nebraska.
Sure.
So I understand the complexity of school finance, and I hope I can learn as much as anything about our funding formula in South Dakota and how that will impact us in Sioux Falls.
Certainly. Lots of considerations in terms of preparing budgets and things like that
Right.
come when the greatest majority is coming from property taxes and taxpayers at home. So
Right.
what are some of the biggest challenges you see in the days ahead, maybe in your first year? Anything you're trying to anticipate before it happens?
You know, I think one of my biggest challenges is I'm a relator. I really want to know people, and there are a whole lot of people to try to know. So that part is going to be, I think that'll be a frustration for me if I'm here 20 years. I think that'll be a frustration because there are just too many people to know and know well. So that part will be somewhat frustrating. But I think the thing that really will drive me is to make sure that the momentum that is currently happening in the Sioux Falls schools isn't dropped on my watch. There are great things happening here. I didn't want to go to a fixer-upper, and I didn't. Sioux Falls isn't a fixer-upper superintendent job. It's a job with great momentum. It has had excellent leadership. At least that's been my experience with Dr. Holman. I don't think there could possibly be this many good things going on if there wasn't good leadership in the superintendent seat. So I will try to do my best to continue that momentum, and then hopefully put that relationship piece that I intend to bring along with that.
I've heard you say before that you're looking for incremental improvement, and I assume that plays well with your most recent comment, that you're not looking at a fixer-upper, but there are still, even in a great system, there are still opportunities to improve.
There will be gaps in the Sioux Falls school system. I don't know what they are with right now, just from the outside looking in. I think as we talk to more people, we learn more things. We'll figure out what those gaps are, and then our strategic plan will go about addressing those gaps. But I don't want to focus on what's not happening and lose sight of the good things that are happening. I don't want to put this machine in reverse. I want it to continue to go forward. So that's a real goal. And the complexity of the machine probably is what scares me most. So I'll just have to work hard to make sure that we don't slip it into reverse.
That would indicate that you're human. Something scares you.
Yeah. Well, I think when you have the lives of 24,000 kids, I don't want to say in your hands because I don't want to overstate my importance, but I don't want to understate the importance of what we do in K-12 either. I think we should be a little scared, and I think we should be a little respectful of the responsibility that we have in growing the youth of Sioux Falls. That's something that I'll always take seriously.
I always have had the feeling that if you're not a little bit nervous about something or a little bit scared, it maybe means your heart's not in it. So that's not a bad feeling to have, is a little uncertainty and wondering, what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I always talk to my kids. My kids were all very involved in activities in general, but in athletics as well. And when they were very young, I'd talk to them about nervous. Were they nervous? And they didn't know whether they wanted to admit that at first. And I always explained to them that it was okay to be nervous. It was not okay to be paralyzed by that nervousness, but it was very much okay to be nervous, because when you're nervous, you know you have something to lose.
Right.
And so go forward and make sure that you don't lose whatever it is that's near and dear to your heart.
Sure. What are you looking forward to most in this role? There are those things that keep you up at night, I'm certain. But what are you looking forward to?
I'm probably looking forward to the thing that I miss most in leaving Kearney. When I left Kearney, there were tears. Now, unfortunately, most of them were mine, and not necessarily the people that I worked with, but the relationships from the people that I would work with on a day-to-day basis in the office that I went to every day, but also the principals that I worked with and really made things go in the building, and then the teachers that made everything happen. When I talk about incremental growth, and I'm very willing to be held accountable for the incremental growth of our kids, and I think our teachers are very willing to be held accountable for the growth of our kids. But to work together for that common cause and that incremental growth, principals, the teachers, the paraprofessionals, the cooks, the custodians, the secretaries, all of them, that's who I will miss the most. And of course the kids, and seeing what they do and what they grow into. That's the thing that I'm most looking forward to, developing those relationships and seeing that growth and getting to know principals and teachers in every realm of the school system. And that's also what I missed most about leaving Kearney, and seeing the kids who graduated over the last 8 years and the adults and the contributors to society that they've become. Certainly. So what I miss the most and what I look forward to the most here.
Very good. What would you like to tell the community, the parents, the students who maybe caught this program? What would you like to tell them most about the next school year, and maybe what the expectations should be for them and for you as well?
Wow, I'm not prepared for that one. Well, I think the first thing from a very practical point of view is they need to enjoy August. In
Right.
years past, they haven't necessarily had August, so when we kick it off in September, I would say come ready to learn. And really what I want is I want everybody to hold up their end of the bargain. From my standpoint, I need to work hard, learn, and keep the machine moving forward, as I mentioned earlier. From our principal's standpoint, to really motivate the folks in their building, whether that's their teaching staff or their kids, but really be an entrepreneur in that building and take that building forward. From the teaching standpoint, teach every kid like they're your own. And I suspect our best don't need to be told that. And also to remember that sometimes our own disappoint us, but love them and teach them anyway.
Right.
And then, and really from the student standpoint, we're all here for you.
Right.
So take advantage of us being here for you. So I think that probably would be the expectation going into the year.
It's a powerful momentum when you have that many students and you have that many staff members and the parents all working in tandem to better the education and the lives eventually of all of our students. Right. Any final thoughts you'd like to share with our viewers today? Anything I didn't ask that you think is important for our community to know about you? I'm certain they'll be learning about you in other ways as well in the future. But
no, I think hopefully people will continue to see the excellence in the Sioux Falls school system, and the fact that Dr Maher is sitting in the superintendent seat is lost on everybody. Because I just want the community and the school system to continue to progress and grow and evolve as they have for the last several years. And I think if I'm doing my job, a whole lot of people won't even notice who's sitting in that superintendent seat.
Sure. Very good. Well, thank you for joining us, Dr. Maher, and we hope you've learned a little something about our leader who is taking the helm July 1st and leading us into the future. Thanks so much for joining us on K-Learn.